Hey folks, welcome to the test drive lab, which is Modernize core infrastructure by migrating legacy big IP configuration to AS3. And this lab is with HCP Terraform. So the idea of this is actually the goal of this lab is to make you familiar with how you can use Terraform resources, big IP Terraform resources with big IP and HCP Terraform to deploy application on big IP, right? So how you can manage and orchestrate those application using Terraform. So this is a kind of intermediate course or workshop which gives you familiarity with what is AS3 and then what are the resources, big IP Terraform resources used in this lab, right? So how do you, like, if you want to start automation, how do you start with HCP, Terraform, and big IP? So let's see that. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit about Terraform Cloud, as well as I'll talk a little bit about AS3 and then how the lab is structured. And then we'll see like how do we convert those legacy application or legacy configuration, big IP configuration into AS3 and then deploy using HCP Terraform, right? So we'll go through that. So Terraform, you guys must be knowing that Terraform is used as an infrastructure as a code. On the right side, you will see that there are a couple of resources listed here, Terraform big IP resources. The first one, which is this big IP AS3. Now, this resource is used to deploy the JSON, AS3 JSON onto big IP to configure the application objects, right? Things like virtual IP, then your pool members, your profiles, and stuff like that. And this is called as declarative API, declarative Terraform resource. And here below this, you can see that there is another resource which is called as big IP event service discovery, which is used to work with HashiCorp console to discover. Basically, it works with HashiCorp console to do service discovery, and whatever services which are coming on the catalog on the console, it will learn those services, discover those services, and update the pool member automatically on the big IP side, right? So that's there. And if you look at the FI Terraform provider, we have a couple of Terraform providers, right? Like starting with big IP Classic, we have provider for that. We have resources, more than 100 resources for that. Then we have a provider for FIOS, which is the latest operating system for F5. And like if you guys are familiar with R series and Velos, you can use this FIOS provider to create tenants and stuff like that. And then we have provider for F5 Next, which is our latest big IP, next generation big IP. So we have provider for that as well. And then we have a couple of modules, basically Terraform provider modules to configure a big IP or to do day zero kind of activity for big IP, as well as configure AS3. So those, then let's talk about F5 automation lifecycle. So if you look at, we have tools for each of the activity for the big IP, right? Like if you need to create a specific image for big IP, you have that. You have day zero declarative onboarding. If you want to do like things like cloud init, like you want to set up the passwords as well as load some applications on the big IP default, you can do that. Also, we have cloud solution template and so on. But currently, the focus area is the L4, L7 services, right? how we can deploy application services AS3 extension on big IP to configure application objects on big IP. And then we also have telemetry uh, for analytics and FY SDK. But the focus area currently, this workshop will focus more on AS3. With that, let's talk about AS3. So if you look at AS3 AS3 is actually a JSON blob, which you can use uh, basically to deploy on a single API, right? For example, initially you must have remembered like we had imperative APIs for each of the functionality for application objects, right? For example, you need to deploy a virtual server, then you need API to deploy that. We need REST API for pool members. You need REST API for nodes to monitor profiles. So you need like multiple APIs to do that, right? So instead of that, what we have done is created AS3, which is Application Services 3, which is a single API. And you just construct the JSON blob with all the requirements. And then you can make a single API call to that endpoint, AS3 endpoint, which will configure all the objects. So you don't need to specify, you don't need to refer multiple APIs. You just focus on one API and everything should be taken care of. And that's the idea, right? So basically, and then on top of AS3, we also have fast templates, which abstract this AS3 as well, right? But in this workshop, we'll just focus on what is AS3 and how we can deploy this application services. So AS3, if you look at it's like it's an enclosure with your AS3 class. There are multiple classes, but AS3 class is to control, which does actually most of the control part of the AS3, right? Like things like, okay, how do I do a dry run for this AS3 with this AS3, or how do I update, how do I delete, right? That part is taken care of by AS3 class. Then there are some controls which are very specific to ADC class, which we'll talk about. Then, which is again the second most enclosure. And then we have the tenant class, which is nothing but mapping to the big IP partition. So if you are creating multiple partitions, you need to create multiple tenant class, right, in AS3. So that then you will have multiple partition, and we'll see the example of that. And then finally, like you have application class under these individual partitions, which can have virtual servers, which is nothing but the service class. So what type of virtual server you need? You need HTTP or you need HTTPS, UDP, and so on. And then under these virtual server, obviously we need pools and the rest of the stuff, like things like your iRule, your HTTP profile class, and so on, right? So this is an example on the right. You can see that there is a AS3 example here, and you can see this is the complete AS3, and which can show, basically it shows your AS3 class, and you can see that the action is doing is it can do the control action, things like deploy, you can do dry run, you can delete and stuff like that, right? Which is the AS3 class. And then you have the ADC class, which is which can update, which basically list out the schema version you're using. You can label it, and you can do update mode, right? You can do complete update where it will remove the existing configuration and put a new one when you have this complete thing mentioned there. And then the tenant class, like we talked about, it is actually the partition part of it, like which correspond to the partition on the big IP, right? And the route domain. And and then the application class folder where you define the template type which you want to deploy, whether it is HTTP, HTTPS, TCP, UDP, all those. And if you want generic or shared, and then that has to map to the service class which you are defining, right? So again, if you are doing HTTP, then under that HTTP, what is the service class, which will define the virtual IP address, and so on, and pool members, and so on. So this is just to give an idea. Okay, I'm not going to go very deep into this, but this is just to make sure that you understand what is AS3 and how it can be used, right? And how it is structured. You don't need to know all the stuff. Actually, you just need to know where the changes and what things need to be customized. And eventually the fast template, which will be abstracting all this AS3 stuff, and it will be doing like exposing only a couple of things out of this, right? Like, for example, it can expose virtual server, it can expose pool member, and so on. So you don't need to worry about ADC class or AS3 class and all that kind of stuff when you are using the fast template, when you are rendering the fast template. And that's another feature actually on Big IP, which abstract the AS3 altogether. So it's not in this lab, but that is another thing which is built and which is supported. So here actually you can see on the right side you have the AS3 Terraform resource for Big IP, and on the left side you have those imperative Big IP Terraform resources, right? So you can see like when you are deploying a virtual server, you need a couple of things. On the left side, you can see you need a monitor, you need pool, you need how to attach that pool to a node, you need profiles, iRules, all that kind of stuff, right? Okay. So now, and then you have on the right side where you just define a single resource, and then you basically refer to the JSON, and the JSON AS3 JSON, which we talked about. So it can be a file, it can be on some other web server, or it could be located in a GitHub. You can refer to that, right? So that's the difference between that, and most of the workshop will be focusing on this, right? On AS3. So another important thing which I would like to point out is we have something called as VScode extension for Big IP AS3. So that means if you have a UCS file, Big IP configuration file, a legacy file, you can convert that into AS3, and then using the extension tool on using VS Code, and then you can use that AS3 to deploy configuration using Terraform Cloud, using this Terraform Big IP Terraform resource. So this actually we have listed a method actually how do you do that, right? So there is an example actually in the lab. You will go through this, and also you will deploy this AS3 using this extension, which we'll talk about that. And then finally, I want to show you this how the lab looks like. On the right side, you can see that we create a simple virtual VPC, and that VPC will have your Big IP as well as your application. So as a part of day zero configuration, we will deploy this infrastructure using Terraform Cloud. We will also do some of the stuff like configuring the organization in a Terraform Cloud, also doing workspaces for deployment of this configuration. So like you can see on the UDF, so we have in the diagram, you can see that you have a jump box. So basically you spin up the jump box, you spin up the instance. Once you do that, you will basically use RDP to go into the jump box and then open the browser as well as VS Code, right? And then you pretty much 90% of the work will be doing through that workstation, through that jump box. So the steps are actually you'll first create an organization on the Terraform cloud, and then you create a workspace. Even that is automated. Actually, you can use TFE provider for that, which we'll see. Then you basically deploy day zero. So you deploy the infrastructure, your big IP as well as application, your security groups, your VPC, everything, right? Once you do that, then you do the third step, which is day one activity, where you deploy application objects on big IP using HCP Terraform in a day one name workspace. And basically you test it out. And then the fourth step is actually convert that legacy configuration. There is a UCS file which is provided. So you can take that UCS file and convert into AS3 using VS Code. And we talked about the extension. And then you deploy that AS3 using Big IP Terraform AS3 resource into your workspace, right? And that workspace is AS3. Now, all this basically you will have your own student organization on the Terraform cloud, and then you will also have your own workspace, right? So it will deploy all those workspace. And then you can do conduct end-to-end testing between the application. One more thing I would like to point out is everything we are doing this in a VPC, and it has all private IP addresses, right? Like if you see here, it has private IPs. Now, in order to talk to the Terraform cloud, we need an agent, so which is a Terraform agent, which we will be spinning up. So that will be done through automation, and it will come up, and that will talk to your HCP Terraform cloud, so that like it will take instruction from the HCP Terraform cloud, and it will configure that objects onto the big IP. So you don't need to expose your public IP on public IPs, right? So you can pretty much do through agent. And then you have references here, which has documentation and stuff like that. So let's go to the lab now. So let me go to the lab. I'm going to go and share that part. So let's go there. Okay, let me share the UDF. Okay, so now I'm going to access, basically, you will have a different looking window, but it's pretty much same actually. You go to the jump box, click on RDP, it will download a file, and then you click on that file if you're using Mac, and then pretty much, like you will. So let me see whether if I'm sharing the right thing. Let me stop share and share the remote desktop. So you can see that pretty much I will be prompted with this. I'm going to go ahead and type in the username and password, which is workshop. Okay. So once you do that, actually, it's going to take some time to, warm up. So meanwhile, yeah, so it's going to take, so you'll see like on the application side here, you have a browser as well as VS Code. So I'm going to click on VS Code. And did I click? Okay. And then I'm also going to click on the browser. So it will take a couple of minutes to warm up, maybe a couple of seconds to come up. So once it is there, you will have on the browser, you will have a tab for HCP Terraform. So you can click on that, and that should pretty much take you. I think I clicked twice, so I'm going to get rid of one. And then your browser should come here, right? So make sure that, okay, so this is one which we need to do here. Type in password workshop, and you can start a new session. And then you can see here, you have the option here. I'm going to click on Terraform link here. It's going to go ahead and log in into the HCP Terraform. Yeah, so you can see that there is only one organization here, right? So now for each student, you will have an organization name here. Let me log in into this another basically pointer, which is your workshop documentation. And you can see that you have the lab overview and exercises here, right? So here I'm going to go ahead and make new terminal, and we are already in the directory here. And then you can go and see the lab overview, which we talked about already. Like you have the UDF, you have Terraform Cloud, and then you have everything in the VPC, AWS VPC Cloud. Then let's go to the exercise 1. You guys must have got this email which talks about how to basically access UDF. So you can go and log in into UDF. Once you log in, once you click on this link, actually, and then you give the username and password, you should see something like this. Then you click on join. And then once you join, actually you will hit this page. You have to look, you will be in the documentation. So you go and change the tab to deployment, and then you will have jump box here, right? And on the jump box, when you click, you will see RDP, SSH, and web shell. So you select RDP, and that's what we did already, right? And then, yeah, pretty much we are here now, right? So, and now you basically also can go into the cloud option here, and which will list out your key as well as your API key as well as the API secret, which you need to enter it into this thing on the terminal once actually it is up, right? So so this pretty much this is we are showing like where are things, right? Like in the cloud accounts, where are the details, right? So should be in the documentation component and cloud accounts. Okay, these are the tabs which we need to follow. So then this is pretty much you're done with exercise 1. So and then exercise T2 is actually where you basically go into the Terraform cloud. And if you click on that link, which is the bookmark link, you can directly, if you are not logged in, then you have to continue with HCP account, and that's how you log in. But most of you guys will be logged in like that, right? So once you click on the link, so you don't need to do all this. And then here actually we talk about the configuration, like what is there in this first day 0, or it's not even day 0 actually. This is where you will be deploying the Terraform cloud part of it. Things like your setting up prefixes for each student. This is there. It's configuring the organization for each prefix for each student. And then it is also configuring the workspace for each, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do This is it what are the resources used. It's showing, but one of the important thing is, okay, what do we do this next? Next is actually you do Terraform init. I'm going to do Terraform init, and it's going to initialize the Terraform module or Terraform provider as well as your Terraform stuff, right? So that's what it did. And now I'm going to do Terraform plan and apply. I'm just going to skip plan, but just do apply. So this is just to set up your organization on the Terraform cloud, right? So I executed that, and then you can see here I got my student ID, which is my HCP organization name, and then I also got my workspace created, right? So if I go here, you can refresh this. You should be able to see that this NT8M prefix is matching, and this is what we did, right? So we created the organization. If I click on organization, I have also created a workspace where I can start my work, right? And this is what we did here in the second exercise. So now you basically go into Terraform output, and you can see this. And then this is what basically we did. Now let's go into the exercise 3, which is the day 0. Day zero is where we are updating or creating the infrastructure. So I'm going to go ahead and do cd day 0, right? And this is where my configuration is. So if you want to see the configuration here, you can click on day 0, and then you will see all the configuration, like for example, F5. The F5 instance, how it is configured, it's creating, it's basically spinning up big IP in a VPC. It's assigning a private IP, which is fixed for everybody, you guys. And then it's using this user data file, which will deploy your dependency in the sense will deploy those RPM packages which are required for AS3 configuration and so on. This is your TLS private key stuff, and this is your VPC stuff, right? So what VPC and subnets we are using, you can check this out. Yeah, and so this is day 0, and so that's what I'm going to do now is actually go ahead and create. If you follow this, you basically change the directory, you go into day 0, and then you basically configure, generate the key. Now this key is required for the agent. So it's also configuring the Terraform agent because we are using all private IPs, right? So in order for the to access those private data center, you need an agent which is running on the data center, so that your Terraform cloud can talk to the agent and give instruction what to do, right? So I'm going to go ahead and paste and create that key for my agent and let everything be default. I've already done that. And then I'm going to do Terraform init. So I can do this, go here and copy paste this. And it's going to initialize my HCP account. And basically, if you check my main.tf here, you can see that it is using this Ubuntu AMI. And also, one of the important thing here is the cloud TF. The cloud TF is automatically populated with the organization name as well as workspace, right? So anything I'm doing here is actually going and doing stuff in the Terraform cloud for my particular organization, right? Like if I go here now, you can see that what is happening in my agent, right? Like let's go ahead and do that. And if I go here and click on, you can see that it's already there. My runs. Currently, I'm not running anything. I just do Terraform plan. So it's saying me, okay, I don't have credential. And that's where you basically go ahead and add those credential, right? And so what we are doing here is actually we are creating how basically you can orchestrate big IP and what are the steps required to orchestrate the big IP on the Terraform cloud side, right? And so you can see that we got the failure. So now we could go ahead and basically uh, create this variable set for in the Terraform cloud. So once you do in day zero activity, it's all your credential on the are present in the Terraform cloud. And that's what I'm going to do that now. So let's go ahead and go into this here, go into settings, and then go into variable sets. Right? This is the variable sets. And now I want to create a variable set. So I click here and let's go into the documentation again and create the variable sets. You need a name. So I'm going to copy this name, which is there in my manual. I'm going to paste this and go apply globally because I need to configure globally. And now I start adding variables. So these are very environmental variables. So I'm going to add AWS access key. Okay. This one, make it sensitive, okay, once you add it. So where do I get access key? Like in the UDF document, basically you go ahead and do that, right? So let me populate and come back. Let me pause for a while. Okay. So now you can see that I have already added AWS access key ID, secret key ID, and this you can pick up from this, right? You don't need to type in. You can just copy it from here. And and then lastly hit this so that it creates this particular variable set. And now if I run it back again, Terraform plan, it should go and talk to the AWS infrastructure, right? And that's what it is doing. So you can see that it is going here and running stuff here, right? If I go back here on the workspaces and go to this one, maybe not yet, it's still doing. So you can see that it's like refreshing stuff. And if I go here, put okay. So yeah, basically plan went through fine. So I'm going to do Terraform apply, auto approve. And then it's going to go ahead and basically you can see that this is where the plan is queued. I can go ahead and click on this and see what's going on, right? See details. And so it's going through the plan and eventually it's going to go through the all the resources which are there, right? So here you can see that there are like it's doing the VPC, it's configuring big IP, it will deploy big IP, day zero infrastructure, VPC security groups, as well as things like your applications and stuff like that, right? So it's waiting It's applying right now, and then let's see whether it, yeah, this is going fine. Actually, you can see that it's creating all the resources for me, right? It's creating instances, F5 instance also. And obviously you can add a comment and you can cancel as well if you want to, you don't want to create, or if something happens, right? You can go back as well. If you go here into the workspace, you can see that it's applying all the details. So let's give some time on that. And so we already went through the exercise 3. We created plan, we went through day 0, we copied all this, and then you can, now you have to, what you have to do is go into the console, AWS console, and see the instances are coming up. So you click here, and what you have to do is go back to your UDF, which will be in your laptop area on your laptop browser, and you copy the console URL. And that console URL will be in the UDF deployment, right? Like go to the cloud accounts tab and pretty much copy that URL, and you can go ahead and add on the RDP browser. You can click that, and that's where you should be able to come here, right? And then you type in UDF, which is your username, and the password will be in the console. Password will be again back. You go into the cloud accounts and you will have that. So you copy that and pretty much you paste here, and you should be able to get into that, right? You can save this if you want. And on the right side, you can see that it has already deployed my big IP. It is showing me the password for big IP, the URL to go into the big IP and see what, basically the big IP. And then you can also see the agent public IP in case you want to troubleshoot. One of the thing, actually, it's Oregon, which is good. Sometimes it doesn't default to that, but this is good. So now I can go to the, go through all this and go to services, and you can go to EC2, right? So that's where our stuff is. Don't see EC2 here. I can always go ahead and search here. So I click here, and once you click here, you will see that there are instances running here, right? And then you can obviously expand this, and you can see the prefix like the F5 here, which is your big IP. And click here, right? So you have your infrastructure ready now. If you go back to the thing here, you can see that you already have the infrastructure ready. You have all your instances, like instances working here. Like if you go here, you will see your agent also deployed and your backend application and your big IP. And the IP address, it has a public IP, but most of it will be using your private IP in the Terraform cloud. This won't be exposed. This is just for us to look at, but yeah. So here you can see that your workspace has been applied and everything is done in this in terms of infrastructure, right? So basically, day 1 or day 0, you won't be doing it more often. Most of the time, you will be spinning up your infrastructure and not destroying it immediately, right? So you will have your virtual IPs and pool member, all that application objects being configured as a day 1 activity kind of thing, right? And that's where you will go to the day 1 exercise here, which is your exercise 4th, and this is where we need separate workspace, right? Because this workspace will be your day 0 workspace, and you won't be touching it more often. So anything you are doing, you will be doing in day one activity, right? So let's go to the workshop now. So let's do the day one now. So we have all this deployed, is running fine. Now let's go ahead and go into the day one activity. So for day one, make sure you click here and you go into the day one directory, right? So which is this. So let's look at one of the thing is you have to review the day one PF file. Since I have put a comment here, because this will be unique for you guys. You go ahead and go to day one directory now. You can minimize this, go to day one, and don't worry about this TF back file. This I need to remove, but anyway, that we are not using at all. So you go to the main and you can see that your organization is commented, right? And so what you do is actually get rid of this portion till your double quotes here, because I need to, so for each student, this will be unique, right? So I need to make changes here. So go here and look at your organization prefix, or you can also look here, right? Here I didn't display the prefix, but you can always go into uh, your Terraform cloud and do that. So this is NT8M. So if you look at the organization, it is NT8M. So I'm going to go ahead and update this. It is NT8M. And rest of the stuff, it will do it for you. So this will be unique for each of you guys, right? So I did that, and I'm going to save this file. Go ahead and basically go ahead and save this file. So this is saved. So here you can look here, it's using all imperative APIs, Terraform resources, right? Like Big IP, LTM monitor, pool. So basically we are using legacy stuff here, which is legacy Terraform resources. So if I go ahead and do this Terraform plan, it will fail, right? Because you have to do init first. So go ahead and do init. So here is my configuration, and so you have to create the variable set for Big IP. So this went fine, but if you go do Terraform plan, it's going to fail because we didn't set up anything in the workspace for Big IP, right? So if you go here, this is my day one workspace it created for me, but I didn't do anything else because it's gonna say that, okay, these variables are not there. I need to create that. So if you look at the documentation, we have to go back and configure this Terraform variables, right? So you go and pick this name. You can pick any name, but here it's easy. You can configure that, right? So go ahead and go to the settings. Sometimes you have to go and click somewhere else. Sometimes it doesn't work, right? So make sure you basically refresh the page, go to settings, go to the variable sets. So the variable sets will be here, and then hit create a variable set, and we can give the name which we already picked from there. Make sure you apply globally, and start adding the variables, right? So this has to be Terraform variable because that's what we are doing right now. So the variable name, actually, you can, there are a couple of things actually, variable names. You have to make sure that it is things like address, port, username, and password, right? You cannot just do any variables, right? So it has to be that. So I'm going to give address, and the address is common for everybody because it's a private data center. So the address is common. I add address. I'm going to add admin, username, and that is common as admin for everybody else. Then I'm going to add password. So now this is password. You have to copy it from some place. You can basically go to day zero and do Terraform output. So I can do day zero, but make sure you come back into day one again, right? So I'm going to do Terraform output. This will display me the password. So this is the password. So I'm going to pick this password. You can obviously use Vault here and store that password, right? But that's fine. This is simple right now. I don't want to, because there are already too many things we are doing here in this workshop. So password is there, and then finally you provide the port. Since it is a single NIC, I'm gonna use 8443 port number and add. So we are done with all those 4 variables. I'll just create variable sets. Now let's go to this thing, right? So we did this. We changed basically did the student ID as well for the organization. Now we need to look at the agent, how we are doing on the agent side, right? So go here actually and look at the agents. So here you can see that my agent is there. I already got um, basically the public IP as well. And my agent is doing fine, because otherwise it will give me something, right? Something different here. It will give me error. It won't give me the ID and stuff like that. So my agent is good. So this is done. Now, if you do Terraform plan, Terraform, so make sure you are again on day one, right? So don't run this on day zero. So let's do Terraform plan. So it's trying to basically talk to the big IP in the data center, but it's going to fail because there is one more thing which we need to do is actually make sure your security group has enabled your public IP, your laptop, not your laptop, or your Jumpbox public IP, right? So because if you don't configure the input or ingress service, uh, so let me show you, right? Like if you go to security group here on the F5 security group and click on the security group, you can see that this is very tight, right? There is no, it's looking for source IP, which are these, and your Jumpbox source IP is different, okay? Because for each of the workspace, it will assign a different source IP. So you have to make sure that you configure that inbound. So you go to edit and add a rule. Make sure it is for all TCP, and you select, or basically you select my IP, right? So here you can go ahead and do my IP. So see, your IP is different. Now these IPs are from different uh, devices, right? So this is required. So, and then save the rules. So now if you go ahead and go to Terraform plan, you can see that uh, your your plan should work now, right? Maybe one more thing actually which we need to do is make sure your um, for this guy, right? Like make sure in the workspace, this is the day one, and we are in day one. So make sure that the runs are not still working, because if you see here in the settings, and if you go to here settings, you can see that it's using remote still, right? And we want the Terraform cloud to talk to the agent. And this is very interesting point actually, because we need to select this agent, because otherwise it's not able to talk, right? So here you can see that it's going to fail again, because it's not talking to the agent, because the settings here is the settings in the general setting, it was remote. So your plan is not going to be executed unless you select this, right? So it failed now again because of that. So I selected agent and I make sure that big IP pool is used and update the organization, right? And now if I run plan, it should work, right? It should be able to communicate to my big IP. And even if it is using private IPs, right? Like for example, uh, here actually we used the variable sets which are using private IP. So let me show you that. So this is the big IP and this is private IP. It's using all private IP, right? So it's secured. So I'm going to go ahead and do Terraform apply. And it will deploy your virtual server pool member, everything using the imperative APIs, Terraform resources, right? So let's wait for that. So till then, we can go back here and see here the plan is getting queued. And yeah, let's give a couple of minutes. So here I can say yes now. And obviously everything, whatever you're doing this, you can also do through GitHub. In my next workshop, I am integrating GitHub with Terraform Cloud. So pretty much you don't have to do anything on the CLI. You can update in the GitHub and it will make sure that it will run the workflow, right? So now you can see that all this has run. And if you look at the workspaces here, my day one activity has been complete. Now I can go ahead and go to this workspace, and if I want to check what it has done into my big IP, I can select this and I can go ahead and open a new browser and check, basically go to big IP using 8443, go to advanced, accept my risk because I'm not using any um, basically any certificates, right? So one of the thing actually I need to do is copy this password also, because I'm going into this login into big IP, right? So enter this password, save it, and I should be able to see that I have already configured my big IP objects, right? If I go to LTM, virtual server, and you can see that my virtual server is up, my pool member is up, and I have these two members added, right, which are running nginx. Now, if I want to go ahead and go into and basically this is my agent, but if I want to go ahead and access the backend application, I need to basically copy this public IP, or I can copy it from here. let's go to the instances and go here, and I can copy this public IP. Okay. Oh, I need to copy it, right? So I'll copy this public IP and go into here and say that HTTP colon and copy that public IP, and my application is running on port 8080, and you can see that I'm going into accessing the backend application, which is the Nginx. I think just I'll halt here for pause here for a couple of questions, right? Okay. So this is working fine with imperative APIs, Terraform resources. Now, next step is if you look at the workshop documentation, this is what we have achieved. Actually, we moved this from remote to agent, and that's where it started talking to the private data center or to the big IP. Now, what you can do is we also did this actually. We added my IP, which basically make sure that we can log in into the big IP now, and then we basically deployed that, and like I said, we have everything running, right? And we tested this as well. Now the next step is actually you can destroy this, because now we have done this. I can go ahead and destroy. So it's going to take out all the configuration. If you look here and into my workspace, sometimes this you have to refresh the page because the thing is tailed. I'm going to go here and go into day one, which is it's removing the big IP application objects, which we have configured using the imperative APIs, right? Imperative Terraform resources. So I'm going to say yes here, and that will pretty much basically clean up the configuration, right, on the big IP. And that's what, if you go here, my virtual server should go away from here, right? And then we'll move on to the next step, which is, let's go, yeah. So this is gone, right? I don't see anything here. So now let's go ahead and one more thing actually I wanted to show you is actually in the IAP space and package manager. You can see that these are the packages which we have already installed when you're doing day zero, right? So things like your FI apps, VCS, which is your 3.50 NPM module plugin, which is already there. And that's where that AS3 you are able to do because of this package. And then we also have app services template package, but fast template we are not using. But that's another feature. And also we talked about service discovery, that is already there. So this is application services. These are the package management for AS3. So now let's look at, since we have cleaned up our big IP, I don't see here. So now let's look at the next steps, right? So we already did this step, and then let's go to the exercise 5. This is the interesting step where what we are doing is actually creating a AS3 configuration from a UCS image, a UCS file, right? And that's what it is. So if you look at here on the VScode, here, let's go here, right? You have to go to the extension, right? So if I go here, you have to see like what extensions are here, right? I'm going to click on my, so here, if I follow this, I need to make sure that F5 ACC and these extensions are there, right? So how do I do that? So if I go here and click here on extension, you can see that all these extensions are already there. ACC Chariot, which is used to convert your legacy configuration into AS3. Okay, so all that is there. Now let's go and open folder in VS Code and ensure you have open Terraform folder. So let's go to the folder file and open folder and make sure you have selected that, right? Like student, I don't need to do, I trust this. So let's go to Explorer and open that folder, right? So I'm going to go open one folder. I can add. Okay. Then I need to do student and then make sure this is selected, right? So that's the step. And when you select that, you will see something like this. Click on F5 icon on the left side of the VS Code app. The F5 icon, which is extreme left white. So this one, right? I need to click here. And then you will see like import UCS from local file. So I have already, if you look at the folder, I have already have a UCS file there. I've copied the UCS file. So because you don't need to do that because it's just in order to save time, right? So I'm going to do import that file and go to the student, this folder and go to AS3 and make sure that this file is selected, right? So app.ucs. This is my legacy configuration file. So if I select this, you can see that configuration file here, right? And that's what we did. And we are here. So now what we do is next go to the sources. So you can see that I have sources here. Then go to partition and then go to common and then go to this file, right? And this is what your file is, that app.conf. This is your big IP configuration file. And this is what you want to convert into AS3. So I have all this information. I have monitor, I have virtual server, which is like your legacy configuration. What I'm going to do is now convert. So basically I need to highlight this or select this. I'm going to do this and make sure it is all selected. Make sure it is all selected and go and right click here, right? Right click here and convert to convert to AS3. I can also convert AS3 to fast, but I don't have AS3 right now. I'm going to convert to AS3 this legacy configuration. So I click here and wait and see what's happening here. So you can see that it opened the untitled file with the AS3, right? So it has already converted that AS3. So likewise, you can convert your big IP legacy configuration into AS3 so that you can use with Terraform Cloud or you can use any other tool to deploy that. So one of the things actually which we need to do is if you look at the configuration here, we don't have AS3 class here and we need that class. So what you do is actually go here and make sure you basically configure this portion, right? This portion. And obviously you have to end that AS3 class with the closing bracket. So I'm going to put this here And you will see that it is showing me red because I didn't close that AS3. So you go down here at the end and basically close it, right? So now I have the complete AS3. So, and also make sure that you basically, you don't need this gap, the space, like one line. So I just deleted that. So I have the AS3 now, which is good. And one more thing, actually change the timeout value from 999 to 800 timeout value. So let's find timeout. I'm going to bold this, but let's look at the timeout. So timeout is always on the monitor. So I'm going to go and because this, when the conversion didn't convert it properly, like it has to be less than 999. And then I did that. That's pretty much it actually. So I made changes to that. I need to save that as a TC1. Okay, so let's do that. So let's go ahead and do that, right? I don't know why it's okay. Let me refresh this. So I should see that my, so it has to, I can copy as TC1. If I'm using TC2 here, so I can do TC2. I'm going to go ahead and say file. So make sure that this one is highlighted and I save as, and make sure you are in AS3, right? So go to AS3 and then you can type in the value here, means the name. So whatever, you can give any name, but I'm just using whatever is there in my TF configuration, right? So it is something like VS underscore TC2.json. I'm going to save this and it is in my AS3. So make sure it is in AS3, right? So you click there and it might overwrite this, but that's fine. I can replace it. Okay. So I did that and now we can go ahead and deploy this, right? So before doing that, we have to go to terminal. So go to terminal. Oh, can open a new terminal. Make sure you are in your day one, or sorry, make sure you are in AS3, right? Because all that thing is in AS3. I can also go here and go to AS3 and open this and see my main.tf. So my main.tf is using AS3. Now another change here is the organization name. Again, make sure you use your organization name. Here I can go ahead and check my organization name. I can go ahead and add, if I go to student NTM, that is my organization name. I go ahead and make changes here. And remove this part. And this should be NT8M. Okay. And rest of the stuff is good. I'm using vstc2.json. This is what I saved. I'm going to save this file. I'm good now. And let's deploy this now. Terraform init. Let's go ahead and initialize that. and I don't have that workspace now. If I go and enter, I have the AS3 app workspace now, right? I'm going to do Terraform plan. Now it should ideally work because everything else is fine. If the plan succeeds, that means we are good. Your agent is configured appropriately because you look here, my AS3 app, this it's using good. My agent is good. I'm gonna do Terraform apply now. Terraform apply auto approve. So this is going to go and do the remote apply and make sure that the plan is queued, and eventually it's gonna configure the application, right? Okay. So make sure you're into your organization. Always check if you are into your appropriate organization, right? Um, that's very important because otherwise it won't work because each of them have a different cloud account. So it's not gonna work for you if you have a different organization. So you can see that it's using this resource, Big IP AS3 example resource, and configuring the AS3, right? So it's taking some time, but yeah, so it has done that. So like you can see that it's not too much stuff here. Actually, it's only single resource and it's only doing one single API call, right? So now if you look at, I want to test end to end, I can go to this one, I can go to the workspace here, I go to day 0, and because I don't, or maybe I can pick up public IP from here. So this is my public IP. So everything else remains same. I go here and do HTTP colon my public IP colon 880, which is my backend application. So my virtual service is listening on this port. And that's what we are getting back. If I go to big IP and go to virtual server, my virtual server is deployed. If I go to IApps and application services, or maybe here, okay. Okay, so this is what it's already, AS3 is working fine, right? This is simple AS3. That's pretty much it. Actually, stay tuned for another video which I'm creating for how we can use Terraform Cloud to deploy application on Nginx and orchestrate application on Nginx. Thank you very much for listening and listening up to this end. Thank you, folks.